Right now, you are almost certainly warm, and there is no fire anywhere near you. Think about how strange that is. The warmth is just there, filling the room evenly, coming from a vent or a radiator or somewhere beneath the floor, a source you cannot see, do not tend, and never worry about. You did not gather fuel for it. You will not wake in the night to feed it. It will not fill your lungs with smoke or leap onto your curtains while you sleep. You have achieved a state that almost every human being who ever lived would have regarded as very close to magic: warmth without fire. For nearly the entire history of our species, that was impossible. To be warm was to be beside a fire, and a fire, up close, in the room where you lived, was not the friendly thing we imagine. It was a monster you invited into your home because the alternative was freezing. It warmed the front of your body while your back went cold. It demanded constant feeding and died the moment you stopped. It could escape its hearth and burn everything you owned to the ground. And above all, it filled the air you breathed with smoke, thick, choking, lung-blackening smoke that had nowhere to go. Korean writing on the subject captured the trap perfectly. To live in the cold without smoke, or to live in warmth and endure the smoke, that, they wrote, was the perpetual dilemma. For most of human history, you got to pick one: cold and clean, or warm and choking. There was no third option. So the real story of heating systems is not a parade of clever gadgets. It is the story of one obsessive, thousands of years long human wish, chased across every civilization that ever endured a winter. Keep the warmth and get rid of the fire. Take the one thing fire gives you that you need, its heat, and find a way to have it without the flame, the smoke, and the danger sitting in the room with you. Build the fire out of the room and pipe its gift back in. And astonishingly, more than 2,000 years ago, humans figured out how to do exactly that. The first great victory belongs to Rome. Sometime around 80 BCE, a Roman entrepreneur named Gaius Sergius Orata is credited with devising a system that the architect Vitruvius would later describe in detail, a way of heating a room with no fire in it at all. It was called the hypocaust, from the Greek for burnt underneath, and the principle was breathtakingly simple in concept and fiendishly difficult in execution. You raised the entire floor of a room off the ground on short pillars of stacked tile called Pill A, creating a hollow void beneath the whole floor. Then, in a furnace room built on the outside edge of the building, a chamber called the Praeferneum, you kept a fire burning. The hot air and smoke from that fire flowed into the empty space under the floor, spread out beneath the whole room, and rose up through hollow tiles built into the walls, radiating warmth through the stone and out through vents before finally escaping through the roof. Sit with what that meant for a Roman standing in that room. The floor beneath their feet was warm. The walls at their back were warm. The heat came from everywhere and nowhere, even and gentle, with none of the cold spots you get from a fireplace that scorches your front and abandons your back. And there was no fire in the room, no smoke in their eyes, no flame to guard. The monster had been moved to a chamber outside the wall, and only its warmth was allowed inside. This was, in effect, radiant underfloor heating, the exact luxury sold in high-end homes today, running in Roman bathhouses and villas 2,000 years ago. It was the first true central heating system in the world, and it spread across the empire for more than 4 centuries. It had a catch, and the catch matters. A hypocaust was monstrously hungry. That furnace had to be stoked around the clock, devouring wood, tended constantly by workers who raised or lowered the temperature by adding or pulling fuel. It was expensive to build and expensive to run, which meant it warmed the floors of the wealthy and the public baths and almost no one else. And notice the deeper truth hiding inside this triumph. The fire had not gone away. It had simply been moved to the edge of the building, behind a wall. The Romans had not eliminated the flame. They had built the first wall between themselves and it. On the other side of the world, a different civilization solved the same problem with even greater elegance, and their solution was so good they never abandoned it. In Korea, the system was called ondol. The word means warm stone, and its origins reach back at least 2,000 years, with the earliest forms appearing in the northern peninsula and Manchuria, and some evidence pointing back further still. The ondol did something the hypocaust never quite managed. It turned the household cooking fire into the heating system, extracting 2 jobs from a single flame. Here is where it becomes genuinely ingenious. In an ondol home, the fire sat in the kitchen hearth, The hot smoke from that fire was channeled not up a chimney, but sideways and downward into a network of flues running beneath the stone floor of the adjacent room, the living and sleeping space. The floor was built from flat slabs of stone laid over these passages. As the fire's smoke and heat snaked through the channels underneath, the stone absorbed it. And then, this is the beautiful part, the stone went on radiating that warmth gently upward for hours after the fire itself had died. You could cook your dinner in the evening and sleep on a warm floor all night on the leftover heat. But to make it work, Korea's builders had to defeat fire's most basic instinct. Flame wants to rise, smoke wants to go straight up. An ordinary fire sends its heat and smoke vertically, uselessly, out the top. So the ondol builders forced the flame to travel horizontally against its own nature by placing the flue entrance beside the furnace rather than above it, drawing the heat sideways and under the floor before it could escape. In the words of one Korean account, they remarkably divided the flame from the smoke, sending the warmth where they wanted it and the smoke out a chimney at the far end of the house. It worked so well that Koreans never gave it up. To this day, Korean homes are heated through the floor. The modern version simply runs hot water through pipes where the smoke flues used to be. A 2,000-year-old idea, still under your feet in a Seoul high-rise. Now, before this sounds like a story of universal genius, the humbler truth. For most of humanity, in most places, for most of history, none of this existed. The hypocaust was for the Roman rich. The ondol was for Korea, and nearly everyone else was still living the perpetual dilemma with no solution at all because of a shocking gap in the record. The chimney, the single most basic piece of heating technology you can imagine, did not become common in Europe until the 12th or 13th century. For thousands of years before that, most households had no chimney whatsoever. You lit a fire in the middle of your home, and the smoke simply filled the entire space, drifting out through a hole in the roof or through gaps in the walls, coating everything and everyone in soot. In much of Europe, right up until those medieval centuries, people and their livestock lived under a single roof through the winter, huddling together and borrowing one another's body heat, because that was genuinely one of the better options available. While Romans had once heated marble floors with invisible warmth, their descendants 1,000 years later were sharing rooms with cattle to survive the cold. And here is the part the comfortable version of this story leaves out. The failure to separate the heat from the smoke was not just unpleasant, it was lethal. Breathing wood smoke indoors, day after day, winter after winter, scarred lungs and shortened lives across every society that could not vent its fires properly. A slow, silent killer woven invisibly into the price of staying warm. And even the clever systems had a darker edge. Both the hypocaust and the ondol carried a hidden danger: carbon monoxide. In an ondol home, if a single flue cracked beneath the floor, odorless, invisible carbon monoxide could seep up through the stone into the room where a family slept and kill them where they lay. This was not a rare theoretical risk. In 20th century Korea, when wood grew scarce and households switched to cheap coal briquettes that burned dirtier and cooler, carbon monoxide poisoning from ondol floors became a seasonal massacre. Every single winter, the newspapers filled with the names of people who had gone to sleep on a warm floor and never woken up. The dream of warmth without fire was real, but it was paid for, again and again, in scarred lungs and poisoned sleep. Which brings us to the thread running through all of it. The thing humans were actually inventing across these thousands of years without ever quite naming it. It was never really about generating heat. Making a fire hot was the easy part. Our ancestors had that solved before we were even our own species. The entire obsessive multi-millennium project was about separation, about putting distance between the human body and the dangerous, smoking, devouring flame, while still capturing its warmth. Every heating system ever built is, at its core, a wall between you and the fire. And the whole history is just that wall getting thicker and the fire getting further away and harder to see. Look at the progression, and it is unmistakable. The open hearth put the fire in the middle of the room, in your face. The hypocaust moved it to a furnace behind the wall. The ondol moved it into the next room entirely, in the kitchen. Then came the basement boiler, which moved the fire below the whole house out of sight, sending only warm water up through the pipes. And finally, the modern system moved the fire out of your home altogether to a power plant, perhaps 100 miles away, burning gas you will never see, to make electricity or heat that arrives at your vent as pure, clean, sourceless warmth. The fire never went away. Somewhere, right now, something is burning to keep you warm. We did not defeat the flame or transcend it. We simply won the oldest wish in the history of human comfort: warmth without the fire in the room, by moving the fire so far away and hiding it so completely that we forgot it was ever there at all. You are warm right now, and you cannot see the fire that warms you. Your ancestors spent thousands of years and thousands of lives trying to give you exactly that. The monster is still burning. We just finally built a wall thick enough that you never have to look at it.